We could address that first.
Sure.
Ready? Okay, we'll go ahead and start the July 26th BZA meeting, 2022. We'll start out with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings that we have. Lord, many times we think of this country and we take it for granted. Lord, we just take for granted our freedoms and all the things that we have that we can do on our own. And Lord, so many other countries cannot do that, Lord. We just thank you for the freedoms that we have in this country. Lord, as we continue today, we just lift up our military and all the policemen and everybody that tries to protect us each and every day. Lord, we just ask that you will protect them. Lord, just keep them safe so they can return to their families each and every day. Lord, as we continue today, we just pray that you will give us guidance, that you will help us in our decisions, betterment of the county. This we ask your name. Amen. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do a roll call.
Yes, sir. Lisa Hobbs. Corey Belanger.
Here.
Jerry Camp.
Here.
Kurt Stevenson. And John Simmons.
Here.
Thank you.
If you had a chance to look over the minutes from last meeting, entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion we accept the BZA minutes from June 28th, 2022.
Second?
Second.
Then first and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to ask the board first off to amend the agenda to move the appeal from Drews Parts and Kelly Drews to be first on the agenda. They did file a continuance on the appeal, so I'm going to hand you guys the documentation and hopefully we can address that first so they don't have to sit through the 10 petitions or however many we have today. They did file the continuance last night, I believe. And then I think if there's any other questions about process, if Jeff can help me out with that, because this is a new one for me.
Along with the continuance, there was an appearance filed by, and you may have that, by Drew's Parts attorneys, they are present today, I note. Our rules do contemplate a request for continuance. The continuance itself, if granted, would, it's a petition filed by him, so he's requesting a continuance of his own, what would help him. There is the issue of the fine, which, depending on what the board, Rachel, can you clarify that?
I think that documentation, that was a separate issue. There is no fine that's in place right now for this filing, or what had happened was I issued a violation notice, a zoning violation notice, and he had 15 days to respond to that zoning violation notice, which he did. He had filed his appeal within the 15 days, so there is no fine that's related to this at this time because he's made the proper steps forward. So the letter that was in that filing was the fine from the missing a deadline earlier for a different issue related to the site. So I would say there's nothing related to a fine for this.
So there's no ongoing fine. Completely up to the commission what it wants to do with the continuance. It's up to you. Due to the attorney was just, I believe he was retained either yesterday or over the weekend. So it's up to you guys what you want to do on that.
So we need to decide whether we want to accept this.
You can grant the motion to continue till the August meeting, if appropriate, or you could deny it as well. Completely up to you guys how you want to proceed.
Any discussion? Well, it looks like he's been, working on trying to get this all solved, so I think we ought to give him the continuance to continue to try to get this project all finished up.
This would be a continuance for the zoning violation.
Zoning.
So we would just be delaying this by a month. I would say there's not necessarily any work he's doing in relation to the zoning violation. I think this would just give his attorney some time to review the documents and put his case together.
Is he looking to change the zoning?
I don't know. I think what the appeal that was filed is that, I issued a zoning violation on it. The petitioner did not agree with my interpretation of what was going on in the site, so he filed an appeal to you guys to, I guess, review my interpretation of the ordinance and what the site use is.
Yeah.
So with the appeal, then the petitioner's attorney will be presenting information and their case basically as to why, their use is a legal conforming use in that zoning district, whereas I'm saying it's an illegal use in that zoning district. And then you guys will decide what your interpretation is of the ordinance.
Right.
We'll have an informal little trial.
Right.
Back and
Right.
forth.
Right. So this continuance is just delaying that discussion until next BZA meeting. So if you want to delay it by a month,
Sure.
you can. If you want to discuss it today, then you would deny the continuance.
Okay. Do you guys have anything to add to that? No? Does anybody else have any discussion? Okay. Entertain a motion.
What's the date of our next meeting?
August 23rd.
I'll make a motion that we request a continuance until August 23rd at our next BZA meeting.
Second?
Second.
Do we need a roll call vote for that?
Or voice vote would be fine,
Yeah, I'd
John.
say all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and then we will get on track with the agenda now. For new business, we have petition number 2022-SU-009. The petitioner is Mr. Fakuri. He has a property which the address is listed as 0 North State Road 9. This is in Anderson, Lafayette Township. This is a request, a special use to run a car lot and auto repair in the general commercial zoning district. The box that you guys have is what you as a Board of Zoning Appeals should be looking at when you grant special uses. There's a list of 4 items to consider, and then there's additional items numbered 1 through 11 that you should be looking at in regards to a special use permit. So I'll kind of walk you through my staff findings and then give you what my staff recommendation is, and then we will have time for the petitioner to come up and talk and discuss the project. Okay, so according to the Madison County Land Use and Development Code, auto-oriented uses, it's listed under the special uses in the general commercial zoning district. So that's why we are here today, so that you can look at this and consider it and ensure that if you do want to grant this petition, that we are looking at the different elements to make sure that it's compatible with surrounding land uses. This petitioner is seeking the approval to run 2 independent auto sales and service businesses on 2 adjacent parcels. The proposed business would feature auto sales on the front portions of the lots and auto repair and body shop in the rear of the lots. Their application has been submitted as part of this filing, and you can see that there is a letter of intent. There are 2 drawings that show what the site would look like, and then we also had our building inspector go out and take photos of the existing site. I would like to note that there was a stop work order placed on this site because the petitioner did not obtain the proper permits to do any of the building or laying the concrete pad that's existing on the site. So that's all been stopped at this point. My staff recommendation on this at this point is to continue this. I don't have enough information as planning staff to really review this to give you guys a good recommendation. The drawings that were submitted I would say that they are not adequate enough for us to make a decision on this today. They don't appear to be to scale. I think the boundary line that is indicated on the drawings is not accurate. When we pull this up, thank you, Stacy. She has this already up and showing right now. The 2 sites, you can see that there is some right-of-way, some awkward right-of-way that is to the west of the site off of State Road 67, 9. It's not 67 in that area. I apologize. It's State Road 9. So I'm not sure what work was done in the past with NDOT that land had to be taken and is now right-of-way. But you can see that it was previously an undeveloped site. So, just in general, for him to have a business, he can have a business on the site, but he does need to submit a site plan that has to go through the technical review committee to approve what that plan would be. So that's my recommendation at this time, is to continue it. Let's give the petitioner time to get proper drawings completed that meet our land use and development code. We may need to have a traffic study done to look at how this driveway cut does impact State Road 9. I have some concerns that, having one driveway cut for the 2 parcels, we need to make sure that there's language that, if he were to sell the southern parcel, that the southern parcel still has access from that driveway cut on the northern parcel. And things like that. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done before you guys really should be considering granting a special use for this site. And with that, I will turn it over to the petitioner as he has some time to discuss his project. And then just make sure that everyone signs in with your name and address on the paper up at the podium.
I think there's any neighbors close to that, is there? I think it's kind of...
Stacy, would you be able to zoom out a little bit to see what the context is?
This was the Tom Wood, where they had all the tractors and stuff. And I don't think anybody's in
What's the one to the...
this one.
Yeah, and then the one across the street.
This is Farm Credit.
That's Farm Credit. It's right across the Farm Credit. That's what I thought, yeah.
And then I think this
Dentistry, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the dentist office, and then that's the propane
Yeah,
company, and that's the gas station.
yeah. Well, why... are those other... Is Farm Credit and those others, is that in the county? Is that in the county too?
I believe so. Yeah, if we can get the zoning turned on, and that would show if it's in our jurisdiction or not. Yes, so you can see everything that has a color on it is in unincorporated
Yeah.
Madison County. You can see the context that those other parcels that are, running along State Road 9 are all general commercial.
And where they had the tractors and all that, that was county too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Wow.
It's interesting. So
It's
it, you know,
not city limits.
having this use, I would say, is not inappropriate for the corridor, but we do need to make sure that, you know, proper plans are submitted before we, I would say, grant a special use on this. We need to know kind of the full impact of the site and, again, have proper drawings that show really where and what the full plan is for the site before I would feel comfortable making a recommendation on approval or denial of this.
Right. Would you like to come up and speak?
Good morning to everybody. First of all, I'd like to talk about what the young lady just said. First of all, the present usage of the lot right now is allowing almost everything got to do with cars, from auto repair, auto body shop, car wash, anything you want to do with cars, you can do with the present
Right.
zoning. Adding the car business would actually enhance, and in more than one way, in the outlook, the niceness of the area, it will have positive impact, first of all, not negative. And like you mentioned, like Tom Wood, which we are interested in buying right now, used to have tractors there. Everything on that side of the road is actually made, you can say, for the car business.
Sure.
And adding car sales would not have any negative. It would have every positive return on the city, on the county, and on the residents. Now, she mentioned also that the drawing, I think Miss Elizabeth is present. Oh, what's your name? Oh, Stacy. I'm sorry. Miss Stacy, she can vouch. I've been coming to her office almost every other day to make sure I got all my papers ready. I submitted the plans almost a month ago. And I asked very specifically if I needed anything to do, especially about the drawing. And they told me more than one time. And I talked to her personally, the young lady, Stacy. I'm sorry I say young lady.
No, you're fine. Stacy won't mind if you call her again.
No, I thought I get you confused. Your name?
Rachel.
Rachel. And I talked to Rachel, briefly, and I did everything that they wanted me to do to make sure that on today, you guys can have everything you need to know about the property. Now, like I mentioned, the present use is basically everything but the car sales, but that's fine. As far as granting or not granting, you can go ahead and do the granting, and there's also something called conditions of the granting. You know what I'm saying, sir? You could say, okay, you can have the car lot, and this is our criteria for a car lot. There's no sense for waiting. We could use this time to develop and work on the property. As far as she mentioned there was a non-stop order. That's basically really untrue, because when that young man or the man that came to the property, there was no work done. She said when you stop working,
Right.
you'll go over there and somebody's working. And as soon as I found out about it, in 1 hour, ago, I was there at the city, at the county, asking what's going on. When I laid the concrete, I came to the office before I did anything. Do I need to get a permit to do? They said no. And then when I bought the small office, it's a 600 square foot office building. I came, they said there was a miscommunication, I admit, on my part. They said 10 by 112, 10 by 12, you don't need a permit. I had it in my mind, 10 by 120, 100, 1200.
Right.
And everything, I was going day by day with the office of the Madison County. And like I said, this project would only bring revenue to the county, would bring jobs to the county, and has absolutely almost zero negative impact.
The cars that are there now in the picture, are those ones you have for sale?
Those cars, I had a prior car lot,
Okay,
and I had to move them.
Right.
And there is no sign for sale. Some of them are for sale, some of them are for repair. If you can tell, when that man came, there was nobody at the site. I even had two cars in the driveway,
yeah,
sitting that way to stop everybody from going in.
Right.
And there is no sign of business, there's no sign of work. It's like a desert. I come every couple of days to just make sure everybody that I'm here.
right, okay. All right, Rachel, do you have details on what he needs to do to move forward here? I mean, I know you mentioned the traffic study, but, I mean, we obviously know that it's a busy intersection, I mean, a busy road, and lots way bigger than his have not had any trouble getting in and out of there, so.
I think it's going to end up being a liability on the Board of Zoning Appeals part then if you do not have a traffic study done, because there may be a deceleration lane that would be required as part of this. So, and that would be something that I think we would need to work with NDOT on. I think anytime we're doing a modification of property when it's along a state road, we should be working with NDOT to see if they are going to require any additional improvements to be made. With this being a old driveway cut that has never been used for a site, my recommendation is to work with NDOT and see if they're going to require improvements to be made for that driveway cut. So,
Yeah. Okay, what else does he need to have done then? Better drawings, I'm assuming, right?
yes, I would say that there needs to be a set of drawings submitted that looks at drainage and stormwater and, just a fully developed site plan that would go through our technical review committee, in which we require this for commercial properties. And it's all outlined in our code of ordinances of what is required for a set of drawings like that.
So does he need to go in front of the technical review before or after us?
I would prefer it to be before you, because I think looking at that, I guess that is up to you. If you want to approve a special use without a set of drawings that show what the site will look like when it's developed, I think the petitioner is going to have a car-oriented use at this site anyway. I mean, I think the special use petition is just for the car lot in particular, because I think that is the piece that is the special use, where there's other parts and pieces of his business that can be done on this site without the special use.
Well,
So
the
he needs
repairs
this
and all that stuff,
regardless.
though, in the past, we've always had that as a special use also.
Okay. So that, I guess that's up to your discretion. If you would like the full set of drawings, he's going to need to do this full set of drawings regardless. But if you want to wait and make your decision after you see what the site is going to look like of what you are approving.
Yeah, because he'll have to have a full set of drawings before he goes to the technical review, right?
Yes. Because that's the piece that they will be reviewing, are the drawings.
I was thinking in the past, we always voted on it before the technical review, but do you remember? I thought,
That happened at times.
yeah. I think we've done it kind of both ways.
We have.
I would say I'm probably a more conservative planning director, that I would want to know what I am giving a recommendation on before I would recommend it. But I could argue the other way too, I guess, that, for him to invest the money in a set of drawings, he may want to know that he's guaranteed that use. So
Some of Rachel's concerns, if we went that way, could be done through conditions.
Today.
Well, it could be today, or it could be at a later date, that A, B, and C have to be provided, that this is.
for
only-
this to happen, yeah.
Correct. Contingent conditions, that if you have to hit these slots or you're out.
Right, so you can make a recommendation to approve the special use, but that's contingent on him submitting a full set of drawings, getting approval from NDOT that this cut is appropriate for the traffic that will be generated on this site, And if there's anything else.
In figure 1 on these drawings, it shows like there's 2 cuts already into the property. Are those different cuts for the north and south?
No,
Marshall?
sir, there is no request for any new cuts.
No, I'm looking at the picture here, and there's 2 driveways going in. Is that one for the north parcel and one for the south parcel?
I don't, can I see that picture, please?
Yeah.
Are you talking about?
No, the top picture, yeah, there's 2
Top
cuts
picture,
going
see,
No,
in.
that cut is not into our property here, sir. This is to the property next door.
Oh, it's next door then?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
next door. There's only one. And, yeah, that's only one there.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, you allow me to, now, you mentioned that you need a special use for auto repair business or auto, when I bought this property, sir, I made sure that the auto repair part of it and the auto body shop does not need any,
No, that's not true.
that's what it says here, Your Honor, sir.
I'm
That's
not
what-
sorry, but that's not, because of the way it's zoned.
Yeah, it's right here. That's what they gave me before I even bought the property. So I don't know if the county
No,
can
that's
just
not.
change. It's right here.
That's not
Auto
right.
repair, auto body, it's in the zoning, the present zoning. You do not need a special use for auto repair.
Unless it was granted from some time past.
That's a general information, sir.
So this is our land use matrix for today. He's zoned general commercial for auto-oriented uses at small scale. He can do a gas station, drive-through ATM, a restaurant with drive-in service, or a restaurant with drive-through service. He can do a medium scale or auto-oriented use, which includes bus station, auto repair and body shop, car wash, vehicle detailing / accessories shop, oil change facility. So those are permitted under general commercial. And that's why we were talking today about auto-oriented uses at the large scale. He does have to have a special use permit to do auto sales and service.
Yeah, still has to
So-
have special use, no matter what, so.
Well, he can do an auto repair and body shop without getting a special use. That's just permitted in general commercial. So what he's here today so I think his plans are anyway to do an auto repair and body shop. And that's where I'm saying he still needs to have a site plan that he submits without even going to this board or asking for a special use. The special use today is just adding on to what he already wants to do, or already can do, which is the auto repair and body shop. He wants to add and get that special use for the auto sales and service. Is that correct?
Very close.
Auto sales.
And like I said, you can go ahead and vote on it because there is no use of me spending, like she said, that's good, spending special amount of money on something that you might say yes and you might say no. So I would like you guys to vote on it, yes, with proper conditions, which is fine with me. I have no problem with that. Because you're gonna have cars, everything you wanted to do with car sales is already gonna be there. There is nothing really added. It's just like a red tape, basically, because you're gonna have cars there no matter what, with the special use or without. I have no problem, having the vote on it and then saying, okay, Abraham, you can do this, but you need to do 1, 2, 3, as long as it's reasonable, which is fine with me. Because I think the benefits outweigh more. And the traffic, she mentioned about the traffic. I actually sat there, sirs, at that property, because I always do like my own survey. I would sit there and I would look at my watch, and I would spend 5 minutes, and I would count the cars, just like manually. That street over there is not really that busy. It's not really that big traffic. So I just like to mention that the traffic there is not busy at all.
I think we should be getting information from a traffic engineer on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's fine.
From our ordinance, Section 8.2 site development plan is required for all developments for which a location improvement is required, and that applies to the general commercial zoning district. So, and I guess for any properties in the general commercial zoning district, if anyone wants to put a sign in, if they want to put a parking lot in, if they want to put an accessory structure or a structure in general, those projects all have to have a site development plan, and they have to go through site plan review.
Yeah. Normally, we always see these drawings before we vote. And that's the way it's always been in the past.
Sir, when I went to the office, your office, I asked there many, many times. And that lady that sits in that office, I've been there at least maybe 20 times. She probably got tired of seeing my face. Honestly, I've been in her face so many times asking, do I need to do anything? Do I need to get any drafts, anything? They told me it was fine.
Well, the petition procedurally is fine, but this board can require reasonable.
Yeah, I understand. Now, as far as the drawing, I have no problem.
Stacy says absolutely correct.
Yeah, she's correct. No, like I said, I have no problem. You
Well, the
guys.
reason I just like the way we've always done it before is we've always looked at the drawings, looked at everything that's ready to go to the site, the tech review, the site drawings and all that, and the drainage. We always look at those things first. So, I mean, I don't think if you get all the drawings in, I don't see any problem. But you're going to have to get that in first before we can actually vote on it. I mean, that's my opinion.
I heard it's been done before. We can vote on
Any
it.
discussion here?
I agree with you, John. It seems like we need to have all the ducks in a row first.
Yeah. That's kind of the way I look at it.
We can also invite public comment today as well.
Yeah. Is there any other public comment on this? Okay. There isn't, so.
I did get an email this morning. I can either forward it to you guys for consideration, or if you want me to read it.
Just read it.
Give me a second, please. This comes from Tracy Hoppies. It states that since 1972, I've observed numerous trucks dump trash of various configurations, large pieces of concrete, a burnt barn, and a torn-down gas station, which included an underground tank. In the late 70s, early 80s, Johnson was told to stop dumping there. This property has never had a driveway permit or an address other than 0 State Road 9. On May 16, 2022, without permits, partners in concrete dug a rectangle hole 4 inches deep and filled it with stone and poured a concrete pad. June 2nd, 2022, a rent-to-own 16 by 40 prefab garage was delivered and set on the pad, and 8 vehicles showed up. June 28th, 2022, after 5 p.m., Gosser's Wrecker brought in more cars, and June 30th, 2022, after 5 p.m., Northwest Wrecker brought in more wrecked cars, totaling 35 cars. Since the 6-inch rainstorm on July 17, 2022, many of these vehicles have broken glass and are providing a perfect breeding area for mosquitoes, along with the fact that this area has a flood problem since the building that the Kmart occupied cut off the drainage tile when built. So now we are adding environmental concerns of leaking oil, antifreeze, and battery acid to the mix, along with the fact that properties on both sides of me have weeds waist high, adding to the mosquito breeding area. On June 25th, 2022, I received a mail packet with Anderson Auto Mail addressed to me for payment for said building. It was returned. Use of my address, mailbox, or driveway is unacceptable. July 15th, 2022, Madison County truck at 10 a.m. was in my driveway, and the gentleman said he was going to take pictures and red tag all of it. The cars nor the building were not supposed to be there. No red tag was seen anywhere. July 24th, 2022, at 8 a.m., owner of property and other individuals showed up and started removing parts from a black 2-door car, taking a cooling fan, condenser, radiator, and other parts. Possibilities are drained coolant on ground or let out Freon R134 to atmosphere, which there was no drain pan or electricity to run AC recovery machine. This is adding nothing to the neighborhood except more environmental issues and providing a real bad example for the existing businesses that are following the rules and have the proper tools, permits, and licensing. I apologize, my phone just,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay. There was only like one more sentence left, so. At this time, property now comes complete with a yard couch for your relaxation while viewing the mess. Thanks for your time and have a great day. And there was also photos submitted with this.
May I respond, Your Honor, sir?
Sure.
This is the neighbor right next to the property, which actually approached me when I came to buy the property. He has been, even before, I only bought the property like 2 months, maybe 3.5 months ago. He has been approaching every single person that comes to the property, discouraging him from buying the property just because for his own convenience, Your Honor. He lives in a commercial property and he wants the area to stay residential while he's living in a commercial. If you notice, even if me owning the property, I wouldn't have a report like he did. He doesn't want that property developed just because for his own convenience. He's not worried about no environmental. He's not worried about nothing. He has approached everybody. He just wants to leave that property sitting there forever just because he's living in that house next door. Nothing that he mentioned is true. The cars are there. I know the cars were there. I'm allowed to have the cars there. I know I had a reason. But like I said, I would like you guys to actually vote on it with conditions if possible, because I heard the attorney said this happened before, where you can vote yes or no. And then if you say yes, you say, okay, yes, with precise conditions, what you want from us. Thank you.
Rachel, do you have a list of anything else that needs to be done before you can grant it?
I would say that there being a current stop work order until he has permits in place. I guess at this point, just talking with Jeff briefly, is I'm just kind of concerned that you guys cannot even issue a special use permit at this time if he has an active, I guess, violation or a stop work order on his property.
Right.
That has to get addressed before, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Review that.
Yeah.
Report of attainment today.
Yeah.
Or not a table, but
A continuance.
Right.
I'd like to reply to that, Your Honor. Sir. I came to her office 1 hour after that, and everything in that order was not correct. Everything, except that as far as the setbacks, he was incorrect. Everything in that stop, there was no work to be stopped. She said stop. There was no work to be stopped. The concrete, she mentioned, you don't need a permit, according to what I learned from you from the office, to support. As far as the permit, I came the same day. When I found out I needed a permit, I applied for it. A young lady, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, Rachel, she refused to do the permit. I came there many times to pay for the permit.
This building here, this is.
Yeah, she refused. She said she wants to
This
wait till
building here
today.
needs a permit though, right? Because it's outside the size.
It needs a permit because it is a business use on a property that requires a site development
Right,
plan. So
right.
it wouldn't
So-
be us giving a permit for an accessory structure or the building that was put there. And even though on some properties, we may not require a concrete pad to get a permit, on this one, with the amount of work and the business use of it, it absolutely needs a permit.
Right.
How would
That's what we were
the
thinking.
customer or the public would know?
You
When
would
go
read
to
the
city-
land use
You
and
guys gotta
development ordinance that is available on the website that all properties in Madison County need to follow. And as a property owner, you should be aware that there are rules and regulations on your property, and you should be doing your homework on it, and it's not anyone else's responsibility but your own.
But I came here in person, and I asked, and they told me 1, 2, 3.
And
I'm
you
not
gave
blaming,
bits
I'm
and
not blaming
pieces
nobody.
of the project, not the full scope. When you came in, you asked specific questions if you could have, if this use is allowed on your property, to which I said, yes, this use is allowed on your property. But you did not say that you had nothing on your site, that it was a blank slate of a site. That makes a difference.
It's all,
If you had bought a property that was already developed, we would not be having this discussion.
Right. Okay, so I think, it sounds like to me, we need a continuance to get all these drawings and all this stuff in line. I just hate to send it on to the tech review board without looking at it first, and I hate to okay something I don't have.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Do we have a motion?
What kind of time limit do we need to put on this?
Until
Until he has
Rachel
a set of
says they've
drawings.
got everything we need.
So let's, we can continue it until the August meeting for now, and then we can address it during the August meeting, depending on,
Whether it's ready or not.
yeah, that way we don't lose the notices.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And I would recommend to the petitioner to get a engineer on board to do a site development plan.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've always had those before. We've always looked at those. That, and then NDOT would decide whether that driveway cut is big enough or not to handle that.
you know, sir, what bothers me, I'm
That would
sorry.
also be for the final approval, that would be a condition that could be added at that point, where the special use would be rescinded in the event that he could not acquire that permit. But today, we don't need to do that, we just, verbal instructions on what needs to be done would be sufficient,
Yeah.
along with the continuance.
Yeah, I'd say if you get everything done that she's telling you to do, I don't see a problem, but we're not gonna vote on it until we can see all those documents.
Your Honor, sorry,
So,
the petition has been there for a month, and I came and asked, do you need anything?
I'm
How come
sorry,
they're
but
telling me that today?
That's the way it is.
It's kind of a way to delay my project.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. She could have told me. She had it on her desk for almost a month.
Okay, do you have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we set a time limit on this, and we continue this until August 23rd of 2022. At that time, I'd like to see a site plan of the area, something from the county for the drainage, and also something from the state for a cut into the property.
Second.
Second.
Would be August 23rd, 22nd.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
August 23rd. Okay, roll call vote?
Corey Belander,
Yes.
Jerry Sam,
Yes.
John Zimmerman.
Yes. Okay, we'll come back on the 23rd. If you've got all the drawings and everything, just work with her directly and be sure you get everything done you need to get done before you come back.
I did, Your Honor, I did, and she
Well.
ignored it. I guess there's something missing here in
Yeah.
this communication. I don't know why. I almost spent 20 times at her office. She could have told me all this
Well,
at her office.
We'll get it right for next time.
So can I have a copy of what the order is, so I can work on it? This is really unfair. I spent a lot of my time working, coming back and forth. The security people downstairs, they say, what this guy is doing here coming here every day? I look suspicious coming here so many times. Oh. So I would like to just have in writing what you guys asked for.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Really unfair.
Okay.
Okay, the next group of petitions, there's several that are, had been filed by the petitioner named Terry DeLong. And I would like the board to consider all of these together rather than us talking about each petition separately. Do we have to have a motion or anything to talk about them like that, or is
No,
that
I-
just?
Officer can make that.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so we will be talking about petition numbers 2022-V-013, -017, -018, and -019. The petitioner is Terry DeLong. The zoning district is R2, which is residential, and the property is located at 1359 East Zell Road in Summitville. It's in Van Buren Township. The request is obviously several variances. Mr. DeLong is seeking a variance for side and rear setback relief, variance for the maximum accessory structure square footage, to have an accessory structure located in front of the primary structure, and also a second driveway cut in the R2 residential zoning district. Just as a reminder, factors to consider when granting a variance. We must ensure that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner, and that the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. This situation shall not be self-imposed nor be based on a perceived reduction of or restriction on economic gain. Okay, so I would like you guys to flip to the petitioner's filing. There is a drawing in his packet that shows his site plan. And then Stacy, when you have time, would you be able to pull this up on GIS? It's okay. The address, when you're ready. You got it? Okay. So this parcel is actually several parcels that are together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 parcels total. You can see that there's a residence that is on the house or on the properties, and they're all owned by Mr. DeLong. There is an alley that has never been developed that bisects the 9 properties. And you can see at some point the house was constructed in the alleyway, which, you know, this may have been done prior to us having a planning department or, you know, issuing permits, or maybe, you know, at some point our planning department did not go out and inspect to make sure that, you know, the footer was dug properly. You know, I'm not quite sure how the house was built over county right-of-way, but that is the situation as it stands. Mr. DeLong had approached me about, I think originally about having the alley vacated, possibly, or we talked about vacating the alley. The county engineer was in favor of vacating that alley. However, she did request that a replat of the property happen so that it all showed up as one parcel rather than having, you know, that's how we need to deal with a vacation of right-of-way. Mr. DeLong declined to go that route. Instead, he has opted to file for the variances. Instead, he's wanting to put a storage shed or an accessory structure on his property. And looking at that drawing that you guys have in your packet shows where he would like to locate that structure. Stacy, could you X out that box, please, so we can see the site? So he would like to locate the structure on that parcel that's highlighted up on the screen right now. But this causes several issues with our zoning ordinance. First off, the rear yard setback on that particular parcel where he would like to locate the structure is 20 feet. And if you locate something 20 feet off of the alley, it's putting that structure in front of the home. The minimum front yard setback is the front parcel where the garage would be, or I guess that is where he shouldn't, according to ordinance, the accessory structure should not be in front of the primary structure. So, you know, locating the structure is with the size that he's proposing is making it go in front of the primary structure. So that's a piece of this as well. Mr. DeLong is also proposing a 2,000 square foot accessory structure, which is larger than the primary structure, which is also an issue with our ordinance. According to ordinance, his maximum accessory structure size is 1,287 square feet. And like I said, he's proposing a 2,000 square foot accessory structure.
Because you're only figuring that one parcel. You're only figuring on that one parcel. Is that where you came up with that size? I mean, how are you restricting the size?
The size, we pulled the square footage of the primary accessory, or the primary structure from the property card, and that is 1,980 square feet. And Mr. DeLong is proposing a 2,000 square foot accessory structure, so I'm not quite sure what the question is.
Okay, so you're saying that the secondary structure can't be bigger than the primary structure?
The primary structure, or the accessory structure in this zoning district can only be 65% of the primary structure.
65%. Okay.
Yes. So that's how we calculated that. His maximum square footage for an accessory structure is 1,287 square feet.
And he's proposing
2,000.
Okay. But it's a different parcel. Does that make any difference?
Our zoning ordinance has a provision in it that states that when there are adjacent properties or adjacent lots that are owned by the same property owner, that we do view that all as one lot. It does cause issues sometimes when property owners have built over the property line.
Yeah.
And then it goes to tax sale. However, from a zoning perspective, it's permitted and it's allowed for someone to build over a property line. From my interpretation of the ordinance, I think that's been interpreted differently in the past. The issue that I see that we keep running into on this particular property is just that that alleyway is there. So technically, he should not be building over that alley. And even if he had a structure that went on the backside of his property, those 5 parcels that are behind his house or to the south of his house, he's still crossing that alleyway, and that just causes issues. The alleyway is causing a lot of issues.
Wouldn't a lot of that been solved if he would have just joined it all into one parcel?
Correct.
Made things a lot easier.
Yes, agreed.
Then that alley would just kind of be non-existent, right?
Correct. So it's almost a legal, he owns all the parcels. You know, obviously that alley is never going to be constructed. However, you know, if we permitted something to be constructed on that alleyway, you know, that's not his property to construct something on. So from my perspective, it needs to get cleaned up so that he can do what he wants on
It's just
his
what
perceived
you're doing
property.
is you're looking in future time that those back parcels could be sold independently or whatever of these other parcels in the front, and then they would be landlocked because they can't use the alley to go back to them.
My recommendation to Mr. DeLong was to vacate the alley. I don't think the site will ever be used for anything other than what it's being used for right now.
Right.
And I don't think that selling those parcels off, you know, I don't think that he could sell them for a new home because there's just not enough room on the parcels to build another home.
I got you. Yeah. Because look what they did before when they built the home. They combined two parcels.
It looked like
together.
they combined 2 parcels. So I'm assuming that a former planning director encouraged someone to combine those 2 parcels, or it could have been like that when it was originally platted.
Yeah.
So we can just kind of speculate on what that was.
Yeah, those other parcels are so daggone small.
I know.
But what they could do is if they left, and not saying he's going to do it, but at some point, if you leave the alley and then they took a couple of those parcels and made them one parcel, then it's a buildable lot.
Stacy, yes. Can you scroll, push that so we can see what's on the southern part of the property? Yeah. I mean, it's just very unlikely that it will change. I mean, there's, you know, those roadways are called paper streets, so they were platted out originally. They were never constructed. And it's likely that those roads will never be developed. So
Who owns the alley now?
Madison County. So it is the county's jurisdiction and it's the county's property.
So what would he have to do to vacate that alley?
He would have to apply for vacation. He's not going to go anywhere, but it would be to vacate the alley. I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. But he would have to get it approved through the commissioners, I believe, the county commissioners, to vacate the alley. The county, like I said, the county engineer, we'd talked with her about it. She was supportive of that being vacated. She's had people that have asked her about vacating other alleys or other roadways that have never been constructed, and she does review those on a case-by-case basis. This one, she was recommending that, she would support the vacation of this.
Yeah.
However, one of the stipulations with her vacating it or supporting the vacation was that it would need to be recombined. So there would need to be some type of a survey done that would replat it, that would show it all as one parcel. Mr. DeLong did not want to go that route. Instead, he filed for multiple variances. And that's what leads me to my staff recommendation. And of course, you guys are able to decide, you are the board, you can make the decision on what you would like to do. But my professional recommendation on this would be to deny it, because I believe that this is a self-imposed issue that he has. When the property was purchased, this was purchased this way. From my perspective, Mr. DeLong had that responsibility of knowing that, he had limitations on what he was able to construct or not construct on his property. And the path forward on this that would have avoided coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals would have been to go through the vacation process and then combine the lots as one.
Okay, I have a question. Could he, if made it all one big parcel and included the alley, you do have a leach field back here. I'm assuming that's a leach field for the house.
Yes.
So that's not a buildable lot.
Correct.
Anyway.
That one,
You can't do anything
we
with it
can't
anyway.
put something on there.
So, but if he would make it all one big parcel, could he build the building that he wants to where he wants it?
He would still need to get variance approval for the square footage of it, since he's exceeding the maximum square footage of the structure allowed by ordinance. And he is still in front of the primary structure. So those are the two variances
we worked on those before.
However, he would meet the side setback. He wouldn't have to deal with the rear yard setback. Okay,
if he put it all into one parcel and he moved the building to the other side of the house, well, what would that do? Then he'd have a bigger parcel.
If he would move the structure to the southwest corner of his property, he would just have to make sure that he was following setback rules. But I don't see an issue with it being over there if it was one parcel.
I don't see a problem at all. I don't see anything he'd even have to come in front of the board for.
If he wanted a second driveway cut, then...
Yeah, well...
However, he could use his existing driveway cut and then...
just veer off of it or something. That's probably what would happen anyway.
I think we should give Mr. DeLong some time to talk about his project and then see if there's any public input.
Hello.
Hi.
My grandparents bought that property in 1929, and as far as I know, it's always been into different several lots, and there's never been an alley on there, and I'm sure there never will be. That's where I want to put the barn, is the only suitable place I have to put it. It's I can't put it in the backyard because of the leach field and the septic system.
We're talking about the other side of the house.
The other side is really not a very good place to put it. The ground's not very level. I have an RV that I want to store in my barn. And the east side of the property is the only suitable place to put a barn on my property. And as far as getting it resurveyed and everything into one plot, that was a very expensive ordeal to do, and that's why I didn't choose that route. I was trying to hold down the cost. And I've already put $600 in the variances, and if I knew that at the time when I did that, if it wasn't going to be recommended, or if Rachel said she didn't think that it should be approved, I wouldn't have really done it then either. So
Yeah, the alley's just a problem. I know it's probably never be an alley, but you don't own the alley. That's the problem.
yeah, that's correct. And I'm not putting the barn on the alley. It's just the
The
setback is.
setbacks, right. Yeah. Any other questions from the board?
So
And
the biggest hangup is the alley?
one other thing I want to say is that that is a dead-end road. There's maybe only half a dozen houses on that road. I don't really see how that would affect my neighbors at all. I get along with all my neighbors, and they're all for it.
So, you had a question about the alley, you said.
Is that the biggest hangup? Is the fact that the alley's technically there?
Well, it creates a lot of setbacks,
Yeah.
problems because of it.
I think the alley is an issue. The square footage of the accessory structure is an issue, and then there is the additional request for another driveway cut. And the size of the accessory structure, of course, is exceeding the maximum that's allowed per ordinance, and then having an additional driveway cut on this parcel is also exceeding the maximum driveway cuts per ordinance.
How could he put the pipe underneath the alley for the leach field? How'd that ever get approved?
I don't know. And
I
would
don't see
say
how
that,
that would ever get approved anyway.
you know, yes, it's how did the house get approved to be built through the alleyway? I mean, that's the other weird
Yeah.
thing about this too,
I
is
built the house in 1993, so, and I didn't have any issues. I don't know.
and that's there's different planning staff and different
And
directors that interpret things in different ways.
I just don't like
so-
the alley in there. I think that just causes a lot of, not for you, but if you'd ever sell it for the next person. it
And
just
when
creates
I
a lot
was
of
having the
problems.
house built, inspectors came out several times to inspect it, so there was never nothing said.
I know.
And maybe if there was a proper survey done on the property, maybe it would show that the house is fully on his property. It's just the GIS sometimes doesn't line up perfectly, so there's, some room for error on that. However, with it being where it is on the GIS, it is likely that it's encroaching into the alley.
The neighbor to the south of him has also came in and talked about the roadway basically behind them, about purchasing that with Mr. Long and the other neighbor to try and get that gone. But he even said that when he looked at this, he was surprised at how his property goes, because his property's right here. And if you see how his goes, it's kind of cattywampus. He was like, I really thought mine went straight down and out. So what Rachel's saying.
Man, that is just weird.
It is a weird area that I'm not sure when these were approved or, and it may, if, you know, Mr. DeLong, like you said, if this was something that was purchased in the 20s, you know, that might have been when these lots date back to, is prior to the 20s. So, you know, there was probably a plan to develop those alleys and those roadways at some point, and then.
It looks like to me you're gonna have trouble selling this place.
Well, I'm
without
not
cleaning
really
it up.
planning on selling
Well,
it.
you will, someday you will. And that's what we're here for, is to figure out what's gonna happen to keep problems from happening the next time. And with that alley in there and your house over the alley, if that's true, we don't even know that that's true without a survey. It seems like, I don't know who in their right mind would ever wanna buy that. Because you've got an alley there that you got a house on some ground you don't know.
From a legal perspective, yes. I am sure Mr. DeLong's home is very lovely and that someone would love to
I'm not
purchase that
disputing
property.
at all.
And as far as the structure size, I'm really kind of lost on that because my neighbors within the last couple of years has built barns, and their barns are quite bigger than their house actually. And she said I could only go a 1,200 square foot barn. That's nothing compared to what my neighbors has built.
And your neighbor may have come to the board and gotten a variance on it, or maybe they didn't get a permit, or maybe the planning
They
staff at
did
the
get
time
permits.
not.
They did get permits, but they didn't have to get any variances.
I think there's a lot of things that could have happened that as to why they constructed that the way they did.
Yeah, it's hard to say. If it was my property, I'd want to clean it up myself. Do away with the alley. But
What would it cost Mr. DeLong to petition the county to vacate the alley?
There's no cost to petition to vacate the alley. The cost would come with the survey that would be required as part of it. Right. That would be the cost, and I don't know what the cost is for having
It was
replat done.
actually it was a little over $3,000 to do the whole deal, and I just didn't really want to put $3,000 more into it.
anybody else have any other questions?
Do you want to ask if there's any public input?
Yeah, is there anybody else wants to speak on this? No? Okay.
Pardon? Okay.
I want to emphasize that my staff recommendation would be, because of the factors that we are supposed to be considering when granting a variance, the one, you know, I don't think that an approval would be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. I think the use and value of the area adjacent to the property would not necessarily be affected in an adverse manner. However, I cannot justify the third point that we are supposed to look at, which is that the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties of the use of the property. We do know that it is an option to have the alley vacated, which would make it so that some of these variances would not need to be applied for. However, I think the size of the accessory structure and the road cut, if he still wants to go that direction with them, those would have to be discussed separately. Or, you know, we would need to vote on those two, so. It's a
I
tough
don't know
one.
what the next step is on this one.
Well, we are obligated to take votes on each of the variances. While we heard all the evidence together, barring any of these being withdrawn, and I don't think that's going to happen, we are required to vote on each of them separately and make separate findings on each, although we can do the equivalent of copy-paste when we do that. But Rachel, when you effectively just made potential findings of fact.
Yeah.
You're from the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
We could adopt those, or would those fit, in your opinion, on all the variances or just the first couple?
I think it would fit for all of them.
Okay. If you're going to make identical findings on each of them, then a vote on all of them would be appropriate at once. He is entitled to a vote.
Anybody else have any opinions or comments on this?
Well, just my opinion, looking at it, I think that even if it's in front of the primary structure, it's not necessarily going to be in front of the neighbor's structures, because his house is sitting further back. As far as the road cut goes, it's on a dead-end road, so it probably doesn't have a whole lot of traffic. I guess it doesn't bother me so much. Just the nature of that neighborhood.
Well, entertain a motion, I guess.
Okay, well, let's start with the first variance is 2022-V-013, and this would be a variance for setback relief. So this would be saying that the rear setback line, which
And that's the setback from the alley,
the
correct?
setback from the alley, right, would be 8 feet rather than the 20 feet that is required by ordinance. So if you guys want, if that would make sense, if I read what the variance number was with what the variance is being requested, and then you guys can make a motion and vote on each one. Does that seem
That's
reasonable?
quite a difference, 8 feet to 20 feet. The one next to it, in that secondary structure in front of the house,
On which one?
the one to the right, or is that
this-
all part of the house? Oh.
I am not sure what's going on the lots that are to the east, because it looks like there's multiple homes, possibly. I mean, there looks like there's a house with a pool to the rear, and then
Yeah.
there looks like there's a potential house next to it, and then I'm not sure what that structure is in the rear. But it looks like there's a separate driveway cut.
But the
Going back to
two
that
buildings
one.
in the front of the pool, the ones in front of the other, I didn't know what that.
I don't know either. And again, those are all on separate lots, so it may be
Yeah.
different
that would be
ownership.
fine there, yeah.
And we don't know if it is all under the same ownership. You know,
Yeah,
we
those
haven't
aren't
done the
even-
research to see what was
Those-
permitted or not permitted on those.
The-
All three are his, that are the same person.
The same person, but they've built over the parcels.
Yeah. So what, Stacy, that the house with the gray roof looks like it's has two different parcels owned by two different property owners.
This one right here?
No,
Yeah.
the one closer to either one, I guess. Because if you clicked on the parcel that was
In front.
This
That
is
one.
owned by Dwayne Wilson, and this one's owned by John Gates.
and then what about the one that is
In front of the
east
pool.
of
Yeah.
yes.
It's still owned
Dwayne
by Dwayne Wilson.
Yeah, but then how about the one to the left?
Same. All four of the five.
They're owned by the same person, but they're built over each other's, over the parcels.
Yes, these four right here are owned by the same person.
Yeah.
And then this one, these
Yeah.
down here are owned by this person right here.
That's weird. They
And
built
I
over
know it
parcels.
has not
Mess.
been
A mess.
other building applications
Where's
coming
the alley
through
going to?
Brazil Road. I mean, that's a kind of, I mean,
In the last 3 years, that's not been constructed.
not
so
to my knowledge anyway.
Yeah.
so they
I
may
just
have
can't believe they
been
let them.
built without a permit. They may have been built with a permit. You know, there may have been a variance granted. Like I don't know what the situation is for those parcels.
Oh, I just don't clean them up to begin with and don't even worry about them after that.
Does that alleyway go across to the other parcels, to the other landowner?
Click.
It looks like
Well,
it
no, it'd go
does.
right through the house if it did.
Oh, this one right here?
Well,
Yeah.
the alley, he's asking about the alley. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So
See, that alley goes through there.
at some point, it was the Wild West. Where-
They had it all laid out nice and neat, but
It
then they
is.
never followed it.
Well, the parcels are too small.
Yeah.
You can't build anything on one of those parcels. I can't believe that whole thing. Did I go through like a plat review or something, wasn't it? To get,
My guess is this happened in the early 1900s. It may have been before there was a planning department. You know, I'm not sure historically how the county, you know, had done this.
And Alec and, I might just like.
Elwood.
Elwood.
so the everybody to the right of him, they're as mixed up as his is.
Can you X that one box out? 'Cause it looks like it goes right through that house.
It does, yeah.
Well, can you put the parcels? Are you there? Yeah, like that. Yeah, it does. Goes right through the house.
You know, and that's where the property owners that have, again, this is not probably an accurate representation of where the parcel lines are. This is a best guess. This is information that's been, you know, photographs that have been taken from however high up that are then overlaid with what the county has for parcel information. So
Yeah.
it's not 100% accurate. However, it's close. It's a good representation. You know, my worry for Mr. DeLong is that, you know, if his house, if he went to sell and the buyer was needing to take out a loan, a lender, this would be a red flag to a lender. We're actually running
yeah.
into this on a different property where, you know, they're asking if the home could be constructed like this, if, you know, in the exact same location, if there's a natural disaster or an act of God, you know, and in this case, the house, you could rebuild the house on that larger lot that the house is primarily on, but, you know, with it being within the right of way, that's someone else's property. So, you know, liability wise, if someone were to get hurt in that alleyway, or, you know, that would be on the county. That would be the county's insurance rather than Mr. DeLong's insurance. And those issues when there is a property, a structure constructed on someone else's property, you know, and think of it too, if that wasn't the county's right of way, what if that was owned by another individual, right? You know, how is that handled in that situation? So it's a very messy area.
If I was a banker, I wouldn't touch that. Well, that's it, the way it is.
Mhm.
No way.
And past, directors, I've been told is that because their properties were contiguous, they'd let them build over the property lines.
Yeah.
And then.
That would be my interpretation of the ordinance too. I mean, if that alley wasn't there, I think
Yeah,
we
but
would
see,
be
that's the
having a
problem.
different
There is an
discussion,
alley
but it
there.
is the alley that's really causing
I
a lot
could
of
see
issues.
building over a parcel
Yes.
owned by the same people. That's okay, but that alley, building over an alley like that, and they've done it next to it too. I mean,
Mhm.
I can't believe all that got approved. Because you're building over something you don't own.
If he vacates the alley and the property comes back from the county to the landowner, will they have to issue title to each individual parcel? Since the alley touches all parcels going through there?
Well, I think that's why the county engineer had recommended that a replat would be done so that the issue that you're talking about wouldn't happen. So it would be all of the 9 parcels plus the alley would be rewritten into one description.
Well, I would just keep the county from going into 8 different parcels or 9 different parcels instead of just one big one.
What was that?
Yeah.
That would,
If they take the alley out and the county has to give it back to the landowner,
Right.
they would actually have to go to each parcel owner.
But he owns
But he owns
he owns all
Right,
of them.
That's right.
So we wouldn't be talking about the alley that is to the east of Mr. DeLong's property. That would be if that property owner wanted to come in and have that vacated, that would be a separate issue. We're only talking about the vacation of the alley between his property lines.
Right. But the county would have to come in and do paperwork on each separate parcel.
Usually the petitioners ask nicely to do that for us, but you're right.
And then they would end up with a parcel alley on both sides of his property.
A parcel alley.
A parcel alley to the left and to the right of his property, see?
That's right, yeah, that's right.
It'd be a dead end.
But he'd be okay. That's why ultimately a replat is gonna be the only way to fix
Cleanest
it.
way to do it.
Otherwise, if this turns into a bunch of litigation, it's the lawyer's full employment act, because there's so many property things.
There's so many
It
property
looks like a law
issues.
school example.
It does. I wouldn't want to touch that one without being changed.
No,
Yeah,
it's
just-
nobody out there is fault.
Except maybe the guy that developed it all to begin with. I've never seen parcels that small though to be a buildable. I mean, they're intended to be a buildable lot coming
Yeah.
off of that alley and building both sides.
But again, you have to think about the time period. If this was 100 years ago and that was something that was acceptable at that time, then that's why that was done that way.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay. Do we want to go talk through each one and do a vote on each one? Or do you guys want to have general discussion about what direction you're going first?
Any discussion here? Help her out. I mean,
Why do these always have to be so complicated?
I
this
know.
one, gee, Christmas.
Agreed.
I mean, it seems like technicalities that are hanging everything up.
Yeah.
And like John said, the setback that they're asking for is in excess of what we usually do from the alley to the structure.
Yeah.
And the 65%, would we actually grant, if we separate this by parcel, not separate by parcels, would we still grant the 2,000 square foot? Or if it was all combined into one parcel?
How big is the house, square footage wise?
The house is,
1280.
according to the
1280.
property record, was 1,980 square feet.
80. I think you said 1287.
That would be the
65%.
maximum allowed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's that 65%.
Oh, I got you.
And if you want to, we can talk about that one first. That one might be the easiest one to talk about. Is the board okay with exceeding the maximum size for an accessory structure? Or does someone want to make a motion on that?
Well, technically, he's building on his own parcel. So why is the house even considered in that? Because
Because there's a provision in our ordinance that states that if there is a parcel, if there are parcels that are owned by the same property owner, then we view that as one. So if we were just looking at that lot as just a standalone lot and not looking at it contiguously, he would not be able to build a accessory structure on a R2 zoned lot without a primary structure being there.
Yeah, with it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I got you.
So that's actually in his favor that we're interpreting this as
Right.
contiguous lots.
Well, if we're doing that, then why do we have to worry about the setbacks?
Because the alley is not his property.
Well, but how about the setback to the other, towards the house?
We are not worrying about the setback to the house.
Okay, that one's okay.
Yeah, because he has to have a 15-foot total if it was side, but since it is getting viewed as contiguous lots, we would only be worried about the side setback that is adjacent to that paper road that
Right.
Stacy's hovering over right now. That's the one, but he is meeting that side setback, so that's not an issue. The
Yeah.
issue is the rear setback and the front yard setback.
And the front yard setback,
Is that from the
The-
road or is that from the
From-
blue line?
Setbacks are from the blue lines that we are talking about.
is that right away in front of the blue line towards the road?
Correct.
Which the neighbor's house is right on, and on the other side is
Yeah, they're right on that.
beyond it.
The one, yeah. The one on the other side's even past the,
And I would like to point out too that we are not considering, okay, this makes it even more ridiculous in a way because really, legally, on paper, that's a road. It's road right of way to the east of Mr. DeLong's property. So he's actually a corner lot, which we are not. I'm not saying that we should be. I'm as
right, that make it even
so
worse.
his front setback, he actually has 2 front yard setbacks, but we are not going to do that because it's not a constructed road. It will never be constructed as a road. So that's why I'm interpreting the setback as a side setback on that property line.
Well, generally, as a BZA, we look at things, for exceptions, and this lot with the house to the left of them is even past, for the setback off of the road, they're even past that. They're even past what he's asking for.
It's not right, and that one would definitely have an issue if that house were to burn or get hit by a tornado. It
Yeah.
would not be able to be constructed right there. So
No.
that is something that, as we move forward in time, if that house needed to be torn down or if a permit was needed to be pulled on that, the planning director would not be able to expand that house because it's not on their property. I would say let's focus on Mr. DeLong's property, though. Obviously, there's a lot of messes on adjacent parcels, and we need to kind of bring this back in and look at his particular instance. So I'm going to propose, let's look at the square footage of the structure first, because I think that might be an easier one for us to tackle, because even if you decide in this meeting that, you are not going to approve the other variances, if Mr. DeLong wants to build that structure at 2,000 square feet, he can build that somewhere else on his property if he wants to. So let's start with that one because that might be the easiest one for us to decide on first. So let me find the one that is the accessory.
Accessory for the primary.
No, I want to talk about the square footage.
It's the 017.
Okay.
Well, that's a maximum lot
Well,
coverage.
I think that's a mistake. That should be maximum square footage.
Yeah, because you got lot coverage, it's not lot coverage.
It's not lot coverage. Maximum square footage of structure, accessory structure. Okay, so just to summarize, the maximum total accessory structure size based on the square footage of his home is 1,287 square feet, and Mr. DeLong is proposing 2,000 square feet. So regardless of where this ends up being constructed on his property, I think the board needs to vote on whether or not that size is appropriate.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I got a question on the findings and facts. Are your findings and facts that you put on here, is that for all the variances, or how is the variance? How is your findings and facts on this one particular one?
That's what we were talking about. We think, he was saying, we could consider all finding of facts the same for all of them.
Right.
Okay.
But it depends on, if we vote for it, then you're gonna have to change number 3.
Correct.
And Rachel, any thoughts on the potential
Vote for
finding?
findings and facts, let's say.
Yeah, we have to change the finding of
The
facts.
strict
number
application
3.
on that particular issue would result in practical difficulty, as that term is defined. I'm struggling with that.
I struggle with that one as well, because I think this is a personal preference of the property owner. I don't think that it prohibits him from using his property as a residential use. However,
Practical difficulty in permitting.
I know I'm no help. But I know if I get pulled into court, I have to.
Right, I understand.
So if we vote against the finding of facts, this does away with the whole premise of doing this, isn't it?
No, I think you can look at each petition separately. So again, I think with the maximum square footage of the structure, if you guys, okay, let's say you guys end up denying the other variance requests for the setbacks, and you say, Mr. DeLong, you need to go and have this vacated and replatted. He is still wanting to build a 2,000 square foot accessory structure. So it could potentially be located, if he did get replatted, he could locate that somewhere else on his property. Potentially. He may want to put it in the exact same place, but the size is not necessarily changing.
Right.
So that's why I think that one is more of a standalone one that you can vote on if you want to. If you want to say, no, we need all of these to be packaged together, that if we're not going to approve the setbacks, we're not going to approve the size of it, you could view it that way as well.
I don't recommend that.
Okay.
I think this board has an obligation to make findings on each particular variance in a vacuum.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. So then, if we would approve that, then number 3 would have to be changed?
It would. You'll have to make a finding such that there's a practical difficulty, as that term is defined now by case law, which means that, and Rachel hit on it right then, she said it can't be a mere preference of the landowner. Well, I want that there, so I can't put it there, so it's a practical difficulty. That's not enough. It has to be something that is unique to the property. I think you could almost bootstrap on the presence of the alley by saying that the strict application, because the alley's there, precludes and the leach field being where it is, would preclude the, theirs has to be bigger, right?
Right. I think for the other ones, that might be
That would work.
a way to go, but I think with the size, that may not be the case.
I agree with Rachel. It's a difficult ask to get to the level of practical difficulty. Although stated again, and we've had this before, we are practical. This is a finding you can make, and there's no one here in opposition. Could it cause problems later on? Yes. But if no one attacks your decision within 30 days, it's good law.
Couldn't we say too, because of the surrounding areas, there are the same situation?
You could say it, but, you know, Rachel and I look at things
As
particularly as if we get in front of a judge, they're
Individual.
gonna say, so he went faster, so I shouldn't get a speeding ticket. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing. Our task on this is to look at this and see if we can hit that finding, yes or no. And practical difficulty is always the tough one on variances.
Mhm. It's easier on a site that, you know, there's one site that we're looking at right now where there's a house that was built on the site. The house was built with a previous zoning ordinance. Today's zoning ordinance would not allow that house to be constructed there anymore. That is a practical difficulty that we placed on that parcel. I think there's another example that's a really clear one to me too, that our zoning ordinance requires 2 acres, I believe, for a septic field. And the health department does not require that much land for a septic field too. So we've had some people come in asking about that ordinance, you know, and that's one that I think that does create a practical difficulty on someone who doesn't have a 2-acre site in the country that does not, by the health department's standards, need that much land for, you know, a septic field. So
Split the building, make 2 of them.
RV wouldn't fit in it though.
So if we had 2 structures combined for that,
I think there's a maximum number of accessory structures that are allowed on a lot. So good try.
Makes your head spin on this one.
Well, it seems, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I think on all the variances on the first 2, we're gonna have the same findings. Because Rachel's read those in, that the petitioner meets those 2. It's not injurious to the public health, and there's no evidence to the contrary that if you grant this variance, it would reduce people's property value. So it's all about the third one.
Well, I could see the third one being changed because of the setbacks and those things. It is a practical difficulty there. The size of the structure is the one I had trouble with, I guess. Because remember, we've had some before where we've granted the setback change because it wasn't practical to put it in another area that's lower or whatever and it's not drained well.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely considered.
So we've changed, we can, but it's just the size of the structure.
Septic fields and things like that.
Yeah.
Can be used.
But then I look at it, if it was all one big parcel and he put it over on the left-hand side of the house, we'd be good to go. We'd be out here.
Right. And that's
Yep.
the thing that I struggle with, that it is, and this is my staff opinion, that it is a self-imposed it's a self-imposed difficulty because the petitioner is not wanting to do the vacation of the alley and then replatting. He has the land to do generally what he wants to do.
Right. But unless he gets a favorable vote on the size of the building, doing everything else is not going to matter anyway.
That's a good way of looking at it too. But you still need to vote on them.
Right.
Although if you voted them with a positive, then he reduced the size.
Yeah, but then his RV won't fit in it.
Well, that's a problem. Fair enough.
I don't know. So we need to vote on the size first. So I guess entertain a motion on the size.
So square footage wise, approximately the building will be the same size as the house.
Correct.
that doesn't bother me. It's
No.
not bigger than the house.
Not bigger than the house.
He's got plenty of space on the property to do it. I mean, as far as area wise.
Yep.
So, I guess I would make a motion to accept, what is that?
Thank you.
017?
Yeah.
2022-B-017.
Or you can, on the findings we have to make with the motion, I assume you're gonna make 1 and 2, similar to what Rachel said, the petitioner meets those, as we briefly discussed. And then 3, with the finding the practical difficulty, what do you think? You've discussed it some. What do you think the practical difficulty is? We can tailor that into the findings.
And the practical difficulty would just be the intended use, wouldn't it? I mean, it isn't going to do him any good to build a building smaller if it's not going to be able to do what he wants it to do.
Okay.
Second?
And also, couldn't you put in there that the surrounding areas, I mean, it's similar to the surrounding area?
Sure, you can make those.
Because I think that has a lot to do with
And
this one.
That reflects the character of the surrounding neighborhood.
Yes,
How's that?
I like that a lot. I think that should be in there.
I mean, I think when I look at this, if it were in a subdivision where everything was a lot more consistent, it would be different.
It'd be totally different.
But in this situation, there's no consistency. So, and I think that he's being, I mean, his property is probably the most well laid out.
Way better
of all
than the
of
one
them.
next to him.
So,
Okay, we need a,
Yes.
Say again.
1 would be no, 2 would be yes, and then 3 would be yes?
No, yes. No, yes.
No, yes.
Then I'll help you with the findings as Corey just described.
Thank you.
okay, it's been first and second, and we need a roll call vote.
Corey Billmander,
yes.
Jerry Stan,
Yes?
John Zimmerman.
Yes.
Okay, and that was 2022-V-017, so I'm crossing that one off my list. What about, let's talk about, I was gonna go for a driveway cut, but I don't.
Aren't we?
Okay, so we are okay with the size. The size has been approved. I would say let's look at the location of it, because I think location then determines what we might do with the driveway cut.
Right.
So as we've stated for petition number 2022-B-013, the minimum rear yard setback is 20 feet, and the petitioner is proposing an 8-foot
Yeah.
rear setback.
Yep.
And that setback is to the invisible alley, correct?
Yes.
The legal alley. It is there legally. Okay, so when you're looking at this one goes hand in hand with 2022-V-018, because if you are permitting him to encroach into that rear yard setback on this one, he will also then be encroaching into, not encroaching, but his structure would then be in front of the primary structure.
How much is it in front of the primary structure? It doesn't really say here.
It would be in front of the primary structure by approximately 14 feet.
Which is the size of the alley.
It may be. I don't know what the size of the
Well,
alley
it
is.
says right here, alley 14 feet. That's what I'm saying. I guess my thinking was if he would back that up just a little bit, do away with the alley, he could back that up a little bit, and it wouldn't be in front of the house.
That's correct. And he wouldn't have a rear setback then either.
Mm-mm. That would solve two with one deal. But I don't like him building over the alley without getting rid of the alley.
I agree. I don't feel comfortable as planning director issuing a permit to build on property that is not the petitioner's.
And just because they did it next door, that could have been different situation, different board, different rules, all kinds of things.
It's questionable whether this board would even have the authority to grant that.
Right.
Grant that. Because the county could come in and say, hey, wait, you allowed somebody to build on top of a ground that we own.
That's right.
But his house is already on it.
I know, but
That's a risk that the property owner is taking right now.
that would solve all that too. And a banker would look at that and say, okay, you can do away with that alley, then it's all legal. Right now, that's a illegal structure. That house is an illegal structure.
Unless there is evidence that, through a survey or something that it is legal. You know what I mean? Again, this is looking at a GIS record. We don't have an official survey for the property.
I don't see I could be off 14 feet though.
Agreed. Yes. I mean,
I can see a foot or two, but I can't see 14 feet. That's my own opinion. I'll go ahead and make a motion to deny V018 due to the situation of the alley.
okay.
On that denial, are you adopting the suggested findings of staff?
Exactly. Which, I
So
guess,
you think in that situation, being 14 feet in front of the house is a big issue?
no, it's because if he did away with the alley, he could move it back a little bit. And I don't want him moving it back and build over a structure he doesn't know, or over land he doesn't know.
But what if the county comes along and replats all this
Well, that's a whole different
and it
situation.
disappears? Then it's not an issue.
We can move it back then, see? See, if I deny it going ahead of the house, we do away with the alley, he can slide it back a little bit. He's all in. So that takes care of 18 and 19.
It would take care of 13 and 18. 19 is the driveways.
Oh, that's right. So it'd be 13 and 18.
Yeah.
But then it's 13 and 18. I don't know. I stood up there. I need a second.
I mean, if the county voluntarily came through and replatted this, like if we made a suggestion for a replat in this area, would all of those landowners still have to get the survey themselves? I mean, that's what he was wanting to avoid, was putting out the extra money for the survey.
I'm not sure which department would be paying for that to be done, though. So,
I don't think the county could do that by itself. It
Right.
would be the landowners themselves that would
Push
ask
it.
for the replat, petition it. Someone would have to petition for it. Our planning staff would not do that on its own.
I thought, well, a few years ago, wasn't the county going through and just trying to clean up some of this stuff on their own?
Could be. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I second the motion.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say a replat is going to cost money to someone to do, whether it's the county or if it was Mr. DeLong.
Okay, it's been first and second. Need a roll call vote.
Yes. Corey Belander,
No.
Jerry Stam,
Yes?
and
and John Zimmerman.
Yes.
Motion does not pass, need 3. So we'll have to bump that to the next one.
So would that be a continuance?
Yeah, we'll continue it to the August meeting. It
Okay.
does require a majority of the entire body for any passage of anything.
Because we only have 3 members.
You only have 3, but you need at
All
least
3 votes.
Yeah. You guys have to be unanimous today or
Okay.
nothing happens. Perfectly fine.
Okay. On the driveway cut issue then, would you guys like to continue this then until we discuss, until a decision is made on 13 and
Yeah.
18?
13. No, it's 18. Driveway cut's 19, so we do a continuance on,
On 19?
on 19.
17 was adopted, passed. 13 and
18.
were deadlocked, so to speak.
Right.
And then, so 19 is still in front of you for vote.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I just move that we just continue it to the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so those
Okay.
3 petitions then will be heard again at the August meeting. Okay. Okay, our next petition is 2022.
Oh, can I just make a comment real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to just note to the petitioner that if you would, since it was continued, you got some time to think about it. If you would be willing to do away with that alley, it would make things a lot simpler.
And I think this is just
So,
something to consider too. It really would be in the petitioner's best interest to ensure that his entire residence is on his property. So if there is
Yeah.
either,
because if the house was built over the alley, that's an illegal structure.
Well, really,
And we don't,
at this point in time,
we don't know that.
I don't really care if I get water or not. I've been over here 6, 7
Yeah.
times. It's cost
Okay.
me $600. So if you don't want to give me the permit, I really don't care.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, if the alley was gone, it'd be a lot easier. Okay.
All right, next petition, 2022-SU-008. The petitioner is John Pyle. This is located at 4762 West, 1050 South in Pendleton, the Pendleton area. The zoning right now is agricultural, and this is a special use to run a pool business in the agricultural zoning district. Stacy, when you have a second, can you pull this up on the screen? Okay, so this is a special use. I've included in my staff report the special uses criteria. There's 4 criteria that we need to meet, and then there's also 11 additional items that you should be looking at as a board. That includes things like topography, zoning, driveway locations, parking, landscaping, open space, noise, and hours of operation, design placement, architecture and building materials, traffic generation, and general site layout. According to the Land Use and Development Code for Madison County, contractor offices and workshops are categorized as an industrial use and is listed under that special uses in the agricultural zoning district. So that is why we are here today. If you look at the application packet that the petitioner submitted, he has his letter, or she has a letter of intent in there. And then there's also a site plan, a surveyor location report. You can see that parcel B is where the business would be intended to be located. The petitioner does have plans to construct a home on the parcel that is located to the north. You can see the current structure. There's photos that are of that structure that is located on parcel B. It was a former residence, I believe. It looks like a residence. Thank you. So this one, there's a couple things that I want to point out on this. In the letter, the petitioner is asking to request a merging of the two parcels, which that is not necessarily for this board to approve or not approve. They can, of course, combine their parcels together if they choose to do so. However, with there being a business use on that they're requesting for that southern parcel, I think that it is appropriate. My recommendation to the petitioners, I guess, would be let's keep that business use on that southern parcel as it is. I don't think combining the lots, unless I had told you differently when we had met earlier about combining the lots. I don't think that's necessary. Is that a?
Yeah, so our biggest concern was we were at some point in the future to build a
Let's
farm.
hold on. I need you to come up here and talk. So, and let's do this one a little differently. How about you explain the business and what you're wanting to do up there, and then I can give my staff report at the end.
Certainly.
I just think you'll explain your business better than I'll be able to.
So my name is John Pyle. I own Pyle's Pools in Indianapolis. What we would like to do, we're currently located at 71st and Bedford Boulevard. If you know anything about the area, if you don't nail it down, it will be stolen. I want out of there. So we found this property. I have no issues with maintaining the special use on just the southern portion. We would like to build a pole barn, but to maintain our setbacks so that we're not in here for other variances, the size of that building would cross that small triangle there between the lot lines. But I'm flexible. I'll replat it, I'll resurvey it, I'll move the building.
Are you talking about it would cross?
That line, yes.
Yeah.
It would cross the property line.
Error in the
Yes.
descriptions of properties, and that's why they're not matching up.
But we're looking at probably right there. You can see where they cut the hay on the east side of the small portion.
Yeah.
That building would sit right, the east side of that building would sit right on that hay line.
That's why you were thinking about putting the two parcels together.
Correct. So we've
Yeah.
since come in and removed the derelict mobile home, the building. We hauled away 660 yards of trash because it's been an excavating business or a sewer and septic for, I have a photo from 1950s, judging by the car sitting in the driveway. So they had a long time to pile up a lot of things there. Our pool business is not one of a retail nature. We do what we would call commercial swimming pool management. So we don't have any customers. We do HOAs, neighborhoods. We go out into the world and we take care of those locations. It is extraordinary. That being said, it is extraordinarily seasonal. We work for about a month, 45 to 30 days prior to that to open up and make ready all those swimming pools. We work then from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then we work somewhere in the neighborhood of about 45 to 60 days to get them all closed down. So we work longer opening and closing than we do actually swimming. And then we do some snow removal, which we picked up over the last couple years to help with the seasonality of it. But that's all done, obviously not here. It's all done elsewhere.
So will the house,
I
will you
did.
keep the house there, or what's?
Yes, sir. We would like to keep all of the three structures there minus the mobile home that is already missing. We would like to turn that home into the existing structure into our office. We would like to use the other two barns for parts and storage. A fenced-in yard, build a fence around to the east side of the square pole barn structure there, so that we would have all of our things inside, parked, covered, windscreen fence, so that it looks nice.
And you say there was a business there before, correct?
Yes, sir. Earl Davis.
But has it been vacant for a while then? Is that?
The gentleman died, 3 years
I
ago.
thought it had been vacant for a little while.
I think he died 3 years ago, and his children were, it was divided up between two or three kids. So they, barring sentimental attachment, they were holding.
Okay. Rachel, is that a problem really in this situation if he makes that all one parcel or just builds on top of the other parcel? I mean,
My recommendation on it would be, let's keep the residence separate from the business use. So my staff recommendation on this is to limit the special use to parcel B. However, if the petitioner wants to move that parcel line further north to accommodate the structure that they're proposing, let's do that. So that was part of my conditions for the special use request. My staff recommendation is to approve the special use with the conditions that the special use is limited to parcel B, that the special use wouldn't commence until the properties are replatted and recorded to make parcel B larger to accommodate the additional accessory structure for the business. And then, of course, if any business activity is to expand in the future with either additional structures or, if it does become, or if the petitioner would like it to become more retail focused, those would make it so that he would have to come back and get that approval from the board, which that's already in the ordinance, but I'm just restating it just so that we're all on the same page.
but this residential area, he's gonna make that into a business anyway.
The parcel to the north, the petitioner has indicated that they would like to use that as a future residence. So they would be building a new residential structure on parcel A.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so in parcel B, that's where this house
The
is. Here, they're
existing
gonna make
structure, right,
I
that was formerly used as a business.
I got you.
He is the southern portion.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So B,
I understand.
So there's the
Right.
site plan that you have in your packet. This is B. This is A. Petitioner would like to put a house there in the future, and that's on your site plan that you have.
Yeah.
B is here. He's saying that he wants to do a barn or an additional structure over here.
Yeah.
I'm proposing that we move this line further north so that all the business use can be contained on one site rather than.
Just so that you just separate your business from the residential.
I think that's absolutely acceptable, and we would be more than happy to move that to the wood line right there.
Yeah.
And I think for you guys in the future too, I mean, if you wanted, let's say you end up not wanting to build your house here, let's say plans change and something's changed, and then you can sell that lot on its own and you can still have your business use here.
Absolutely.
That'd protect your business.
Sure.
Easily. Yeah, okay.
But it would create setbacks later on, that's how far back you can build a house.
It is.
That's a pretty big lot.
I mean, yes, he would have to follow all setback rules that are already in the land use ordinance. So, and he's zoned agricultural. I don't know those off the top of my head, but I could look them up. But that would be part of, if he came in with a building permit application, we would be reviewing it to make sure that it's meeting all the standards of the code.
But agricultural, the setbacks are less.
Right, and he's allowed to build a home in an agricultural zone property.
Yeah.
And I think if we move the property line to the wood line there, between the building that has the B on it, that's probably 500 by 750 feet there. I mean, there's a good bit of land there. And I'm the only building I'm looking to build is big enough that I can pull my truck and trailer with my boat in it,
Right.
or a skid steer in the winter, because we do snow removal. That way I can pull it inside, thaw it out, and work on it.
Yeah. Yep. That wouldn't be.
So his setbacks on either property, parcel A and parcel B, since they're zoned ag, it's 35 feet, a 35-foot front setback. Minimum side yard setbacks are 25 feet, and then a minimum rear yard setback is 30 feet. And I think with the way that the lots appear, that the petitioner should have no issues meeting those setbacks.
Question about those setbacks. So 35 feet, the house, the primary structure there is more than 35 feet. Does that need to be, is that my Is that my starting point?
Your starting point would, so your parcels appear to be going to the center line of the road right now. Um,
So you have to be 35 feet off of the road.
We would tell him to be 65.
right.
It's 35 plus 30. Because it'd be from the center of the road to the front of the house.
Oh, center of the road, right.
He's on a local, that's a local road, right?
Center of the road. So it'd be
Yes.
65 feet from the center of the road.
Okay.
65 from the center of the road to the front of the house.
Right.
That's where your front yard setback would start.
Well, and I didn't know, and I don't know what the difference between if the front door of the house or the current structure there is, 65 or it's 80 feet off the road. And I didn't know if I needed to be behind that as well.
It looks like that house is 97 feet from the center of the road.
So I could build my other structure in closer to the road than it is, which I don't necessarily want to. I want them to all kind of be road up there.
Yeah.
You shouldn't
It
have any
appears that
problem
way,
with
yes.
Yeah, I'd just be sure before you move that line, that you make sure you give yourself enough setback in case when you want to build that other building.
Absolutely.
Just kind of figure all that out so you get plenty of setback room. That'd be a bummer to move it and then not find out you didn't move it 5 more feet.
Another
And-
3,000 to 5,000 moved again.
And if you're working with Keith on this, Keith is very knowledgeable about the county setbacks and rules and all that stuff. So he'll do a good job for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, there she's putting in the,
Sorry. It's really not 72.
yeah, okay, yeah. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
I did have a findings of facts put together for you guys. Would the approval be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community? And I said, no, it would not negatively impact any of those items. I do believe that it will meet the requirements and development standards set forth in the district. Will the proposed use subvert and permanently injure other property or uses in the same district and vicinity? And I don't think it will. And then will the proposed use be consistent with the character of the zoning district and the comprehensive plan? And my interpretation is yes. This is what I view as a contractor office and workshop. I think that's very appropriate for an agricultural area. We have, of course, approved many contractor offices and workshops in other areas of the county. So I do believe it's an appropriate use, especially if he's not a high generator of traffic.
And you want to add in there that your recommendations would be to change the parcel line like we talked about,
Yeah.
to replat it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all you had on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Staff recommendation, okay, I'll just read the whole thing. Staff recommendation is to approve the special use request with the following conditions. The special use is limited to parcel B. The special use cannot commence until the properties are replatted and recorded to make parcel B larger to accommodate the additional accessory storage structure for the business. And then, of course, if the business activity is to expand in the future, that he will come back to this board to get approval on what that expansion could be. And that would be anything from additional structures besides the one that we were talking about today. Or if he's expanding like his services. So if it's going from a pool business plus a bee factory or a bee hive, whatever, that would be, if it does require that, then yes, we would come back to this board.
Okay. All right, any other questions from board?
So later down the road, when he moves the property line or the parcel, he's still gonna have to get another cut from the state to come into the property, right?
It's a local road, so we would be getting it from our county engineer.
It wouldn't be a pump, it would be a residential.
Okay.
They'd have to grant that.
Yeah, he would have to go through the application process for a road cut if he were to develop or put a home on that parcel on the north side.
There are two road cuts there off of State Road 9.
Oh, it is State Road 9. I apologize.
That's what I thought. I thought it said state highway.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that-
I apologize.
There that you can see go back, that are already built, all the way back to that tree line.
So that being a state road, who's gonna have to be further off?
But the house would lay the other way, so it'd go north and south. The
The
house
parcel
would-
to the north, to the north of my northern parcel is a vacant tear down home. Which
Yeah.
may be up for acquisition at some point.
Yeah, that could be still be fine.
With it being zoned ag, and I apologize, I was thinking this was a local road. I'm sorry. No, that's all right. Okay, so minimum front yard setback on parcel A would be 150 feet when adjacent to an arterial road.
No, that's not, I'm not gonna build it any closer than that.
I wouldn't think so either, but that, I did state that it was
That's
35
nine,
feet,
yeah.
but it is 150, so that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I still think parcel A is a buildable lot, so,
Yeah. If anything, you just have to come a little bit farther south where it widens out a little
Right.
bit more.
Yep.
He'd want to
Agreed.
do that anyway.
yeah.
Okay.
And we are not technically talking about the house in this
Right.
anyway. We're just talking about moving a parcel line, and we're talking about the business use on parcel B.
Right. As long as it's hard to recommend a parcel if it's not a buildable lot. I
Correct.
guess. But
Right.
it's obviously a buildable lot, so. Yeah, okay. All right.
You already invite public comment on this.
Is anybody in public?
I did get an email about this. Let me read it. Okay, this comes from Steve Strunk. He says, hello and sorry for the lateness of this email. I received this at 8:31 a.m. I just found out about the request for, hold on, let me make sure I'm reading the right one because he's saying a request for rezoning. Okay, so this email that I received is a little not with the correct information about what the petition is about, but I'm going to read it the way that it was written. Hello and sorry for the lateness of this email. I just found out about the request for rezoning. I cannot find the application online, so I do not know exactly what sort of pool business this is in reference to. My name is Steve Strunk, and I own property at 4316 West, 1050 South, which is about a half-mile east of the proposed pool business. I have two concerns. The first is there is no business of any kind in this area, and I'm not in favor of opening any sort of business in what is a nice housing/agricultural area. I do not see any benefit to residents near this business. The second and more important is 1050 South is quite narrow, especially at the intersection of State Road 9. As it is, if there is a car wanting to turn, unless both vehicles are very close to the edge of the road, there is not enough room. This is quite clear in this image taken from Google Maps showing the ruts along 1050 South where cars have gone off the road on both sides. Any amount of additional traffic will make navigating this intersection more hazardous than it already is. There is currently not much traffic given that 1050 South is not a major connector and there are only a few homes on the road. Adding a business here will certainly increase traffic levels, and given the business is of no benefit to the local residents and will increase the hazards and dangers of driving at that intersection, I believe it is not an appropriate change. Thanks, Steve Strunk.
I think he was thinking it was more of a.
Like a
business or
retail.
Retail, you know. Shoot, I wouldn't think there'd be he would notice any difference at all in traffic.
I don't think so either.
Okay,
And I'm
any other
sorry,
questions or comments?
was there anyone else from the public that
No.
wanted to speak? Okay.
If not, entertain a motion.
I move we accept petition 2022-SU-008 with the staff recommended conditions.
Second.
And the staff recommends, and the findings of fact recommended by.
Yes, and the findings of facts.
All right, it's been first and second, we need a roll call vote.
Yes, Corey Belander,
Yes.
Terry Stamps,
Yes.
John Sugar.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're done. Go.
Okay, next petition is 2022-SU-011. The location is 0 East 400 South in Anderson area. This is in Union Township. The petitioner is Richard Boyer. The zoning district is agricultural. And the petitioner is requesting that an accessory structure be built before a primary structure in the agricultural zoning district. We are doing lots of special uses today. And just in your staff report, there are the items that we should be reviewing as part of a special use application. The petitioner has, filed the petition that's been included in your packet. They have, the letter of intent has been submitted. And there's also a drawing that shows the petitioner's site plan. We also have included photos of the subject parcel. It's just an undeveloped piece of property at this point. Stacy, thank you so much for getting this pulled up on the screen for us. So you can see it's a long, narrow site. The petitioner, like I said, wants to build an accessory structure before the primary residence. According to the Land Use and Development Code, an accessory building may be permitted as a special use on a lot prior to the construction of the primary structure for a period of up to 2 years for the purpose to allow a homeowner or a builder to place to store materials for that home. A covenant is required by the BZA that the home will be started within 2 years and that there will be no business activity coming from that accessory structure. My staff recommendation upon review of all of this is to approve this request, but with conditions. One of the concerns that I have just looking at the site plan that the petitioner has submitted is that the barn would be located in front of the primary structure. So my recommendation of an approval is with the condition that be reversed, where the primary structure would be, of course, in front of the accessory structure. And with that, we wouldn't want to create a future non-conforming structure, which is why I'm recommending that the primary structure be placed in front of the accessory structure. So my staff recommendation is to approve with the following conditions. Placement of the accessory structure will be in the location that will be behind the future home and in accordance with the applicable accessory structure standards in the Land Use and Development Code. Construction of the proposed primary structure must start within 2 years of the special use approval. There will be no business activity from the accessory structure, and the accessory structure will not be used for any residential purposes unless explicitly allowed by the Land Use and Development Code. So he can store residential materials in there for the construction of his home, but we wouldn't be allowing him to live within that accessory structure.
There's also a little barn, according to this, that would be in front of the residential structure.
That is the proposed structure that's on that site plan. Are you talking about this?
Yeah.
Right. So
But
his
the house
future,
is in the back. What's in the middle then?
This is a what he's calling a cul-de-sac. It's a driveway. So he's proposing a driveway loop, which is completely fine. He can have a driveway loop like that if he would like. But that barn really needs to be to the north of the future house site rather than to the south of the future house site.
These lines are these aren't parcels, are they?
Let's have the petitioner speak about
Okay.
what the lines are on his drawing because I wasn't sure about those either.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Richard Boer. The lines are just to measure out distance. That's
Okay.
basically all it is just trying to get an idea how far back things are. There's no plans or anything related to those lines. It's just to get an eyeball to that.
Right.
Okay. Other than reversing it, I don't have any objections to that at this time.
Well, I didn't know whether you're even aware that is a rule in the county is
No, I wasn't.
you can't put a barn in front of a house structure.
Okay.
How big of a barn are you proposing?
Currently I have 2 tractors and a large lawnmower that I have to deal with is 9 acres. So I currently have absolutely nowhere to store that. So I need a barn big enough for those vehicles and the material storage. And eventually convert that into storage of the vehicles and a workshop.
You know, you got here on your intent 30 by 40 or
Yeah, that's
40 by 50.
Yeah.
So
that general size.
just okay, so you'd be willing to put the barn behind the house instead of in front of the house? Okay. That's my only issue. Anybody else have any questions?
I got a question.
Sure.
I was under the understanding that if you had over 5 acres, that you didn't have to have a special use, you could put a structure up before a house. Was that the magic number for cutoff from acreage?
I will look.
Because if over 5 acres, then he doesn't need to have a special use, does he?
I'm looking right now at our use matrix.
So you have to have special use to build the house or the barn before the house.
Not if you have over 5 acres.
You still build the barn.
I thought if you had over 5
Well-
acres, you could build the barn before a house.
I don't know about that.
If this is in an agricultural district, why do you even need to have a permit? I mean, to have a special exemption to build a barn? I mean, why can't you just build a barn on a piece of property?
Well, see, we've had all those
I
issues
mean, it'd be no
with-
different than me taking a 20-acre field that I own and just building a pole barn on it.
Yeah, we've had a lot of issues before with horse barns and all that thing, and they were building these horse barns and there wasn't any residential on them. They made them always put a residential.
I
Something
think
there.
too, the intent of the use is to be residential. It's not he's not building a barn for agricultural purposes, though. He's developing a parcel for residential. So I think I'm not finding the 5 acre thing yet, but
But I think in the ordinance, it also states that if you are zoned ag, the accessory structure then becomes the primary, and the dwelling becomes the accessory structure. If I understood how Liz had explained it.
I have a question on that then. Would the size rule come into play then? would I have a issue if the house is smaller than the barn?
Oh, that's a good question.
It is. I worry though it would take me a little time to research, and you don't want to necessarily have me researching this while we're.
So your intent is to build, yeah, your house would be smaller than your barn, is what you're saying?
Not necessarily. I just didn't want to run into that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you learned earlier from a
Yes.
earlier petition.
But that,
But I thought that rule was more specific to the zoning.
I believe so too, because that was a parcel that was zoned R2.
yeah, see, in agriculture, your barn can be bigger.
I
Most
think your
barns are
barn
bigger
can be
than
ours.
whatever size you want in.
Yeah. No, that will not be an issue.
Good. Okay.
Can we just vote on this and grant him the thing and be done with it?
It would be just scrumptious.
Yeah. I'd say he's here, let's vote on it.
Yeah.
And then Jerry, we'll take a look into that 5 acre.
I thought we'd run into that before Newman was here. He read it. If it was over 5 acres, didn't it?
Okay. We will look at that
Good
in
question.
our office. Excellent question.
But I think definitely for your planning, you want to have the barn behind the house.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll just go ahead and do a motion.
I make a motion to accept petition 22SU011, along with the findings and facts of the staff.
Second?
Also with staff conditions.
The staff.
Yes. Along with staff conditions.
I'll
About the
second
placement
that.
of the house.
The placement of the house, the 2 years, you have to have the house, is it started or built in 2 years?
I started in.
Started,
the 2
that's what I
years.
thought. Started in 2 years, and no business in the house, or in the barn.
In the barn.
Okay, been first, second, roll call vote?
Corey seconded, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
And that's with the house behind the home, correct? I mean, the.
That's part of the
house
conditions,
in front of the
correct?
barn.
Correct.
Yes.
Corey Bonlander,
Yes.
Jerry Stan,
Yes.
and John Chris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. You're in whether you need it or not.
Okay. The last petition number is 2021-SU-011. This is a request for a modification to the decision that was made at that meeting in 2021. So the petitioner is Daniel Byerly. He is located at the parcel that we were talking about today is located at 405 South Park Avenue in the Alexandria area. The zoning district, this is zone general commercial. And he had originally come to the board for a request to add an additional storage building in the general commercial zoning district. The petitioner, so I'm going to kind of go over what the original request was for and then kind of introduce why the petitioner is back before us today. And then he will have time to talk about, what his request is and his point of view on it. The petitioner is proposing to build 2 additional storage structures on an existing storage facility site, and he's seeking to modify a previous decision by the board. As part of that special use request on the site, it was determined that the existing structures were constructed without applicable permits and that the site experiences drainage issues due to the fact that drainage calculations were never completed for the site. So when he came to the board, that was one of the conditions that you put on this, was that he needed to get drainage calculations done and get a drainage study and plan done to submit to the Madison County Drainage Board for review and approval. The board determined that once these items were properly addressed, the petitioner could come back to the BZA for final approval for the special use request. The meeting packet You can see that these were the materials that were submitted with that original filing. And there's also some correspondence that was included, of course, the meeting minutes from that BZA meeting. And there's also a site plan that's been included that kind of shows where the existing structures are located on the site. I am going to turn it over to Mr. Byerly so that he has time to discuss what his request is and why he is making the request. You want the microphone?
That'd be fine. I just can't stand up there.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. I have in my hand here a survey done, or a water table study done by Y engineers out of Fishers, where we're building the buildings. Rachel, would you mind giving one of these or take one to the gentleman up there, please? Where we're building the buildings, all of the rain, water, all of the drainage goes to the north.
Northwest.
There's no other property owners. It was the old interurban line, it was on my north border, and then all that ground slopes down to Pipe Creek. So actually, there is impossible for any water off that whole parcel there to go anywhere except on my property and to the creek. We have 5 acres of grass that's to the north of where we're building these buildings. The guy said it's ample, to catch the rain, to disperse it. Even on the rain we had last Sunday, I was up there and I watched it. Very little water made it down to my creek that I made to go from the property on down to the Pipe Creek down there. So there's going to be very little water doing any damage to anybody except, on my property. And it's all on grass. There's no erosion anywhere.
Is that the only issue we had at the time? I remember the drainage, but.
I think a lady that lived on the other side here, she had problems with the water on her property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the history of the site is that there were several structures that, this never went through like a full site development plan. This kind of was happening, and I think and again, I don't know the full history of what has happened, but it's my understanding that some structures were constructed without permits. Now we're at the point where, we have a lot of lot coverage. I don't think there's ever been a proper drainage report done for the site. The Madison County Drainage Board, this is one that they're requiring calculations and the drainage plan. This was something that you guys stated in that meeting too, that was something that the petitioner needed to continue constructing additional storage units.
Again, when we first started building storage buildings there, Jack Zettel was the planning commissioner down here. He's the one that actually told me to go ahead and build the first couple of buildings without permits. All the buildings since then, everything like that, we got state permits, we got all the permits from the county. Brad Newman had me go back from 1975 forward and get all the state permits that the state could show us. We had them all except for 2. And they said their microfilm thing did not show them, did not go back that far. But we got permits and everything for all the buildings there. The drainage and everything, all that goes to the north. The only thing that's north of some of my storage buildings there is another 5-acre field that is in a floodplain, that is nothing but a grassy area. It's owned by Nathan Hollingsworth. And we have no problems if we do get a big rain, which we've had, there is some water that goes over on his field, and he does not have a problem with that. And again, all that drains right down to the creek. The only other property there is the one that's owned now by Woody and Bonnie Wright. There's a dip out in the front yard there that's been there I've been there for 47 years. It's done the same thing over 47 years. When it rains hard, it comes off the road and it comes down into their yard, and Woody has to pump it out. Outside of that, we put up a barrier all the way down my driveway, so any water from us cannot go over to that property until it gets to the road out there. So all the storm water, any water coming off there is gonna stay on my property or go to the creek.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I like the attention.
If we approve these buildings, then they would go in front of the drainage board next.
Yes, I believe so. I mean,
And they did a water study here. I mean, we can obviously see this from this survey. I mean, I guess, the only drainage board would have to figure out is if the water that leaves, like he says, goes down that little open ditch that he made down to the creek.
my recommendation is that we need to work with the drainage board. This is a requirement of the drainage board, is for the petitioner to have that drainage study and plan approved. If you want to approve the special use of adding the structures, I think that's fine, but I think you should add the condition in, as you did at the last meeting, that he needs those required
Goes in front of the drainage board.
things.
Besides, that's what I thought they normally do anyways.
Yes. I mean, this is part of the process. We are not asking the petitioner to do anything above and beyond anything that we would require anyone else to do.
Right.
This is just part of doing business in Madison County and, quite honestly, anywhere in the United States. So
Here's the problem. You go have the drainage study done, we know where the water goes. We know exactly what happens.
Right.
And what's gonna change. The only thing, big change we're gonna have is $20,000 out of my pocket
No,
for them to
all
tell
you have
me
to
where
do-
it goes.
No, all you have to do is go in front of the drainage board and just have them approve what you've submitted. You'd have to have that done anyway. Everybody does that. So,
Well, building the two buildings back there is not gonna change any water going anywhere except on my property and to the creek. That's the whole thing in the nutshell right there.
right.
Absolutely zero amount. Water's not gonna run uphill.
And I don't think this board is arguing that.
We're not
I
arguing
think
that at
we
all.
just need the proper documentation in place that supports
Yeah.
what Mr. Byerly is saying.
So we could approve the two buildings, with, that they go, that
The
gets
condition would be that-
Condition
right.
goes to the drainage board.
Yeah, and do they need to make this finding again?
So what are we, I'm struggling with what we're exactly doing. Are we?
So I
granting a
think
special use? Are we modifying a condition?
it would be modifying a condition. However, they're not, what I'm understanding from the board is that you are not modifying your conditions from that previous meeting. You're still saying that he needs to have the drainage report and plan. So if that's the case, does something else need to be done? It's just as it stands?
Is the drainage report that I brought in substantial to do that?
If you give this to the drainage board.
And they
accept
approve it,
Well,
then,
Believe me, I've called everybody on the drainage board. I sent them emails.
Well, you just have to go to you have to get it on their docket and go to their meeting, and they approve it, and then you're good. But do we have to grant the two buildings, or have we already done that? We haven't done that, have we?
No, you haven't.
it's not been.
Mm-mm. What's that? Well, there was two. There was one this year, and then one next year or the following year.
That's what we had originally applied for and everything
Right.
was for a permit for this year. And in a couple of years, I want to build another building.
Right.
So if you did approve it,
Do we need to change the findings of facts?
you would do an approval with the condition that he has to have,
Acceptance from the drainage board.
That's what we had before.
Stacy?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I'm reading.
It's okay. And this is one where, I'm, looking at the past meeting minutes. Are we missing anything?
No, we wanted the study first.
You wanted the study
We wanted the
first.
study, and
last
then we were
meeting.
going to look at the study, and then we were going to,
What I have written on the front of the folder was,
yeah, I read that.
an engineer had to go out and do a drainage study with calculations and
Yep.
submit it to the drainage board and approve. Once drainage board approves, then the petition could be voted on.
So it was continued until he had approval from the drainage board.
Right.
So the drainage board has already looked at this.
No.
That's what Angie was, I can have Angie come down.
Yes, if you can have Angie come down, I think that would be very helpful.
Was notice provided at this meeting?
Because it was a continuance from,
February.
So the neighbor next door that complained before it is not here then?
Well,
Right.
let me explain to you how this all came about though. He was just gonna come talk to them about requiring that, not to vote on this.
okay,
So it was not noticed for you guys to vote on this. It was just so he could ask a discussion with the board, because he did not want to have the whole property. Back when we talked to him in our office, he
Yeah.
did not want to have a drainage study done on the whole property. He only wanted it done on this parcel right here. And I told him, and Rachel told him, that at that point in time,
that we couldn't waive that requirement.
what the requirements were, and he asked to come back and speak with you guys, but it wasn't to have to my understanding, it was not to have an approval done on this petition. It was just to have a conversation.
We cannot vote on this. There's no notice of potential remonstrators for them to know that this is being heard.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
the neighbor was not notified the neighbor
Yeah.
of this either.
So the way it stands right now, he needs to get approval from the drainage board before we vote on it.
And then we would have to renotice,
Yeah.
both general and correct to effective one.
Okay. I'm good with that.
And my understanding from him when we were speaking to her is that it's required by federal law that he has to have a drainage study. Is she coming down?
You're doing a drainage study on something that, you're doing a drainage study on something that's been, I'm not sure the right word, all these buildings, everything built over the last 40-some years.
Yeah.
We can't go back and change things.
Right.
I got permits on all of them without having that.
Thank you, Angie. Can you sign in?
So they looked at the back 13 acres, and you got the thing there that shows, the water is all going to go down. That's our biggest thing.
I just know by our conversation with Angie and Rachel.
Well, this should have been submitted to us, however y'all wanted it before. We have not seen any of this. As I've told Mr. Byerly, according to federal mandated laws, he has to have a storm water plan for this property.
Right.
Regardless if he's just putting a building wherever, because of what that entire parcel takes on, what it has now, how all that drainage and the issues that we've had out there, he's got to have a stormwater plan for this new building and for this parcel. An engineer would do that. They would do the drain study and such. You would have to show, you would probably need a larger pond. You're going to have some sort of infrastructure. That's what the engineer would do.
He would decide whether he even needs a pond, because right now it's going into an open ditch and going right to the creek. That's what he was saying, that this engineer said.
Well,
But that's
other
what-
than this little piece of paper, a drainage plan that we would have in a report is at least 10 to 20 pages long. One little piece of paper is not going to show us what needs to be seen by our engineer to show that this stormwater plan is going to work and that it goes under federal guidelines.
Okay.
But is that what you have there sufficient for the 13
I would say no.
acres?
From what I've looked at and what I've seen on other plans, no,
Yeah.
just one page is not gonna have any.
And you, like I say, what can change when they go out there and do the drain study? What's gonna change?
A lot of things can. I don't know the ground. I'm not the one that to go out there.
That's real. I've been there for 47 years.
I understand, and we've had two neighbors on either side of you call numerous times about drainage issues of stuff coming from the property that is to the east and property to the west of where this parcel is. And all of that, all that hard surface runoff, all that pavement, all of your roofs on your storage buildings, all of that has to be put into this drainage plan, into this study, showing how you're going to maintain that drain, or maintain that water or ground, or how you're going to keep it and release it at a slower rate than what it does now.
I don't see where a drainage study on the front part has anything to do with the drainage
It
on
would
the back
depend
part.
on what the front part, if it affects the back part. That's the thing. That's what the
If-
engineer would do this study on, to see how it all would affect, because it's, a property line's not splitting it. The property line's not splitting on where that water goes and how it goes. That's why, since this is all that hard surface runoff, that's what it looks at. Years ago, under all of that pavement, there should be some sort of infrastructure where all that water goes. And there isn't, is there?
Goes out to an area where it's grass.
Is there,
And
but
everything goes
is
in-
there, you've got a tile underneath all that pavement?
No, there is no tile underneath that
Okay,
pavement.
exactly.
Well, I'll take that back.
The way that it is now.
We have a drainage going across the road, and it's tiled back to the pond.
But where you have, where water would hit along the drive, in between those buildings and even on those buildings, where does that water go?
That goes to the north.
Okay.
It goes in the grassy area and
to
then,
and it also goes to the northwest, because we've had several calls from the property owner there about the water that they've had, and with the stuff that they've had to do with putting pumps in and ditches and everything else.
Yeah.
That was back then. According to federal regulations and what we have to follow, that whole thing, because that property line doesn't just split the concrete and say it only goes here, the study would have to be done on the entire parcel.
I've got two things. This is from Jessica Baston, our county engineer. She's been watching online. She is encouraging that the petitioner does attend the drainage board meeting tomorrow. She said that he can request a variance to the drainage area if he doesn't want to include the entire parcel. However, that's a request, and that's obviously not a guarantee from, as you know, that they would modify it. But he can request it, so those are just two items. I think the details of this discussion really belong more in the drainage board meeting, not necessarily here. I appreciate you coming down, Angie, and clarifying some of that. Hold on, I'm reading another text from Baston, so just let me. She's saying that he needs to make the parcel compliant with the stormwater ordinance, and only the drainage board can waive those requirements. So your board cannot say that he doesn't have to do this. Again, we clarified this, or we told him this. He still wanted to come and talk to you guys today about it. So I think his next step is to go to the drainage board tomorrow.
So if he would get approval from the drainage board after all the plans are submitted, then he would come back here to ask to get
For that special use approval.
special use for the buildings.
Yeah.
And if he would do it all at the same time, then if there's ever buildings in the future, I mean, that would all be part of that study. Then we could do it all.
He wouldn't have to do it,
He wouldn't have to
do
come
any of
back.
this anymore.
He wouldn't have to come back.
Correct.
Because each building you try to build out there or ask for whatever, you would have to come back and each time and.
Yeah, but you could
Have
just do it
something
once
done.
and get it all done.
Do it now, get it
Well-
all done.
can we go this route? Getting approval from the drainage board tomorrow?
You won't get approval from
You
the
won't.
drainage board.
Okay, whatever, to try to save time. Time's of the essence when you're trying to build the buildings. That you can approve it, if I get the approval from the drainage board, that you approve it? I mean, why do I have to come back another month and another month to get the approval? If they approve it,
Because we haven't noticed this meeting for that decision to be made.
Yeah. We can't even vote on it because it wasn't noticed, so.
And as far as drainage board, and once we get our plans, once we get your drainage study and plans and that kind of stuff, it's gonna be at least 2 weeks for us to even review, and then go back, and then it'll go back and forth with our engineer and your engineer as far as here's what needs to be done, or everything's
Yeah.
fine.
Here's the biggest problem that we have is getting the engineer to do it. This guy here that did this drawing for us, I practically had to beg him. All the others, they won't even call you back, or if they do call, they're too busy, they don't want to mess with it. I can't find anybody that can do it, you know?
And I can't help with that. So I just know what we need to have, and that, I mean, we can't just go by a piece of paper that
Okay,
doesn't show. It has to have a full drainage study.
so can we see what the drainage board
Unless you-
does tomorrow and go for there?
Yep.
Well, the only thing that I would say you're coming to the drainage board tomorrow is that you're gonna request a waiver that you don't wanna do it, or this, you can't do it. But I can't tell you that they're gonna give you approval on that tomorrow either, once they look at everything. Since this has not been brought up to the board as of yet, other than the emails that you sent, and they've all told you the same thing on the emails that you didn't get a response from, is that you need to get a drainage study done.
You need that one.
So,
We'll talk to them tomorrow and see.
that's fine, but I'm just letting you know that you won't get approval, at least drainage approval to move forward. Okay? Since they have not had the opportunity to look at it.
So now you get on there.
I'll put you on the agenda. I'll get you on the agenda for tomorrow.
Same place, same time here?
Same place, 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Okay?
Okay, is there anything else? Any other business? Okay, meeting's adjourned.
We're gonna have to start having lunch provided afterwards.